Live tonight from the virtual Sonoma Raceway, we say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to round 13 of the 2020 Real Sim Racing Full Throttle Cup Series, powered by Boosted. Tonight, we think outside the oval from Sonoma, California, where we are happy to have you with us on RacespotTV. As always, myself, Evan Pasoko, tonight alongside Lorenzo Bonder with our producer, Hugo Luis, at a RacespotTV booth as we get set for the first road course race of 2020. And Lorenzo, me and you were just chatting before the race here about what is unique about not only having these cup cars at a road course, but even some of the more unique characteristics to Sonoma specifically as we head out west and say good evening to all of you tuning in and joining us from home. This is such a fun track because these cars, quite frankly, aren't made to drive on a track like this, and that's why I think we're going to be in store for a great show tonight.
Yeah, we're going to be in a great show tonight. It's the first time they're going to be in a road course. It is a very tricky road course that we normally see. By the way, we're going to be talking about it during the race, that we are normally seeing the shorter layout with the back track. This one has a carousel and this basically the cut to the skip, where is basically the back stretch of the track. So it's going to be bringing a new dimension. It lengthens the track to about 2.5 miles. So it's a new challenge for the drivers as they go around 50 laps around this track.
It changes the complexion of this race as well. The lap goes from just a little bit under 2 miles to about 2.5 each. So this race shorter than last year's. It goes from 55 laps down to 50 to counter that. But let's talk about the championship standings coming into this evening. 12 races down, 8 more still to go until we get off and into the postseason. And the big thing that I was going to be looking at tonight is the road course ringers, because there are some big names still looking for trips to victory lane that may have an opportunity to do so tonight. However, the top guys in practice, Trudell, Friedage, Lariah, Benefield, you can see all their names up there in the playoff picture. They are all in a pretty good position championship-wise. However, if you're, say, a mid-pack guy, Lorenzo, you run 20th to 25th on the ovals, but you really enjoy road course racing tonight here at Sonoma as well. A little bit later on in a couple of weeks when we head to Watkins Glen, going to be 2 weeks where you have a lot of opportunity to make up some crucial points if you want to fight for a championship this year. You can see Watkins Glen, bottom left-hand side of your screen, the second to last race of the regular season, plus that Charlotte Roval, which is the road oval mix, a playoff race later on. So you do have to be good at these road course races, I think, to have success in this series.
Yeah, of course, you want to be consistent every single race and grab as much points you can possibly grab in all races that you try to compete. But I think roads bring a new not complexity, but brings some of the drivers that are not strong into the ovals and are more acclimatized with the road courses and can be stronger. But we have to keep an eye also on Daniel Eberhardt if we're to be talking about top 3 and have a chance to make those points and try to climb up in the standings, because so far he's not having a good qualifying.
Yeah, it is a modified qualifying format for this race. Normally, drivers do 2 laps, and 5 minutes is enough on an oval. Here at Sonoma, we give them a 10-minute session, 2 laps, and of course, the big thing is we will not have any full course cautions. I know a lot of league racing and iRacing with NASCAR and road courses do a random yellow at some point. Of course, in real racing, if there's a wreck, a caution flag could come out as well. No cautions. It doesn't matter how many cars we pile up. So over the course of the 50 laps tonight, with some 30 or so drivers in the field, I'm expecting a little bit of chaos. So not only is that speed and consistency going to be important, but I think just keeping the nose of that race car clean as well going to be at the top of my priority list.
Yeah, those first few laps are going to be quite chaotic. Drivers will kind of struggle to find themselves around the track. They're going to have to mind the gaps and mind the drivers are going to be driving left and right, bumper to bumper, wheel to wheel. So I expect the first few laps to be a little bit more an argy-bargy, door to door, and then I think after the second half of the race to be more calm.
And all the way down to just 3 seconds left in the qualifying session. Time still going in. And you can see from those shots high and above Sonoma Raceway, there is not a lot of runoff space and a lot of corners on this racetrack. So a margin for error going to be super thin in tonight's Boosted Dot Club 50. Let's go trackside, though. Take a look at tonight's RacespotTV starting grid. And the best of them all is Kyle Kamer with a 1:37.225. He will bring us to the green flag this evening alongside Kyle Trudell in second, Andrew Friedage third, Michael Laraya starting P4, and Adam Benefiel will roll from fifth. Continuing on down through, Rhett McBride will start the number 6 spot. Rhett Nichols and Joseph Tice through 7th and 8th. Liam Sheen and Brandon Osborne. Lorenzo, our top 10.
Yeah, so we have an 11th. Scott McClendon, Brian Chambliss, and the 7th row is going to be Bradley Burke, Dylan C. Jones, and rounding out the top 16 will be Gary Sexton, David Washington, Evan.
And just to round things out, you can see through the top 20, the likes of Stanford, Matt Morrow, one of the newer drivers into the series, all the way down with Grant Davis and Khalil Gillen through 26. Those will be the times that are taken in the qualifying session. Provisionals going to be handed out to Mogard, Kaczynski, Durham, Mosier, Soa, and Valderrama drivers who are opting to not qualify in based on a time. And when you want to talk about some surprises as well, this will be a standing start in NASCAR Cup cars at the Sonoma road course. And we were just talking about how hard it is to get these clunky machines around this track. It's tough enough getting them up to the gears at a normal restart. The field is going to race off into turn number 1 from a standing start, so they need to be careful to watch for the lights that will illuminate on their sim at home. And when it goes green, we are off and away for the Boosted Dot Club.
Number 5 is standing
50
still.
Racing from Sonoma. And you mentioned it, that was the 5 car. Rhett McBride did not get going. It checks everybody else up in traffic.
Yeah, I'm just seeing right now he's actually being able to get up and out. Lost a few positions though, lost 10 positions to fire. We have the 77 also out on the track on turn 1.
Yeah, Rhett McBride confused, as you can see. McClendon's off at the racetrack. The 5 of McBride apologizing for the slow start as he wasn't sure the procedures for a standing start. But this is the new portion of the racetrack. They used to skip all this, go through the short chute, and make the lap about a half of a mile faster and shorter. But instead, it is the carousel, a sweeping left-hander, kind of off camber quarter as they go down to the banking and now actually to the end of the drag strip here at Sonoma. They'll now pull back up and onto the racetrack and resume where the lap normally took place. So all of that new. And for some of the chaos we saw, I think the leader's pretty impressive, Lorenzo. They managed to keep it green and clean, I think, all things considered.
Yeah, all things considered, when the tires are cold and you basically go into sweeping left-hander and you go up the hill where you have to manage the throttle and it's easy to offset the car. So well done to the drivers to keep it on track. Minimal damages and basically no major crashes so far.
Just looking through, looks like everybody in a decent enough spot. No real changes towards the front of the field. That's the look with Gary Sexton in the number 13 machine. He is back in traffic right now and they're trying to navigate things for about P15 or so. There's the onboard with him on the left-hand side. He's battling with Brian Chambliss right now for position. They're going to squeeze 2 wide through turn 11. And sneak his way back on through. So Sexton loses out in that spot. And there's another on-board look with the driver who had some issues off of the get-go in this one. We saw that 22 machine of McClendon off and into the grass. That's him trying to pick things up.
Yeah, that guy, Clinton, was basically the sole individual who got into an incident on turn number 2, as I just brought it up on the start of the race. But I'm quite liking the drivers keeping it clean, you know, just finding your pace, not trying to make any funny moves, any dives into some of the overtaking areas. I'm seeing Gary Sexton losing possibly another position to David Washington just as they come out of the carousel. But really good awareness from all the drivers. I think now it's going to pick up a little bit of the pace and they're going to be going toe-to-toe.
And more looks at some of the onboard shots that will cycle through with the drivers here in the field tonight, as there's another VR look with one of our drivers. And the funny thing is, as well, is we talk about polarity through the field. And admittedly, Lorenzo, on any oval race, the fastest driver to the slowest driver may only be 0.4 of a second on an oval, but the fastest time in practice to the slowest here at Sonoma was a 6-second window. So this race is really going to benefit the drivers with long run speed, because they are going to have ample green flag racing, all green flag racing. There's an opportunity to fight for who's the best car. You're watching now the battle for the race lead. Kyle Kammer a little bit loose that time up the hill as he goes for the right-hander in turn number 2. Andrew Friedage qualified third, but the 88 car has chased him down, and he is already on his bumper at lap 3.
Yeah, good control from camera. Breaking into that uphill can be a little bit tricky. You can outside the car real easily, and you have to have your arm work on par to be able to control that car. But for Reynolds is no slouch, and he's going to try to capitalize every opportunity. He try to have a little bit of a load, put a little bit of pressure, but it doesn't find any rooms to go into.
And I was talking with some of the drivers before the race, and they actually said, I think that the most difficult corner was that right-hander that went down and into the kind of that infield portion of the racetrack where you head down to the carousel. So slow, and a lot of the corners are right there. That's basically a double apex turn number 7. And then one of the trickier parts of the track as you go down through the S's, because it's all very momentum-based, and again, these race cars very clunky, and kind of miss out on one corner. That's going to set you up poorly for the next one. So much time can be made up or lost in this section. The run from turn 7 down to 10. And they also mentioned the lack of runoffs. Don't be surprised if we see drivers out in the grass right there. And then the ever so fun turn 11, which is that big horseshoe U-turn. Final corner on the racetrack, left-hand kink, turn number 12 right here. And that is a trip around Sonoma Raceway. But another big mover, Liam Sheen, started this race in 9th. He is up to position number 4. There he is. You were just on board with Rhett Nichols, and you can kind of see the blue and the black number 36 sheet up the road. There's him now. He's one of the drivers on the move. But the fastest car last lap, the car he's chasing, Kyle Trudeau, and he's off track. Liam Sheen totally botching that whole turn number 3 section, and it's going to open up the door for Adam Benefield.
Yeah, but here Adam Benefield just getting real loose on the exit of the turn. Will lose position to Michael Laraya, and now he might lose also another position to Red Nichols. So we can see drivers already struggling a little bit with these turns. It's very easy to lose your momentum. Basically, the entire track is momentum-based. Of course, there are some turns that are more reliant on you to getting your groove up than others, but there's a perfect example of how you should not over-accelerate your car.
And drivers are already complaining that they're tired and they hate this racetrack. It's funny because, and I always talk about this when we go road racing in these cup cars, but Lorenzo, there's 2 different directions you can go on iRacing: oval racing, road racing, and it is, gotten more complex with the addition of road, off-road, and oval stuff as well. But these guys, more times than not, are oval racers, not road racers. And, there is some overlap. There's plenty of drivers who enjoy doing both, and those are the guys you see up in the front of the field. But for a majority of the field tonight, I was talking early about an opportunity to make up points. A lot of guys just fighting for their life to not lose points. This is really a struggle, and 50 laps going to run out to about an hour and a half of racing as we take a replay, and that's a second look of the standing start. Rhett McBride, the black car in the middle, did not get going at all. That's kind of the area of the field here tonight where drivers are just trying to survive. These 50 laps going to feel like a Le Mans 24.
Yeah, it's very complicated, whereas the Le Mans 24 is a rolling start over here, standing, and with the high horsepower of these cars and how the big torque they have, it's easy for you to spin the tires so hard and basically lose control on the exit already, and you can lose not only a lot of time, but you can lose your car control and getting into a lot of troubles, as Brendan Osborne actually retires from the race.
Yeah, we have our first victim of this boosted dot club 50. The 80 machine had been damaged, and he had to pull that car off. Actually, though, was running in P12, so that was actually a good effort until he got some damage. Brandon Osborne out of the race. Michael Kaczynski also 2 laps down. Of course, the full running order top of your screen as we pick up the battle between Gary Sexton and Brett McBride. And McBride's going to try to go the outside through the S's. That was down in between turns 7 and 8, and it was an impressive move to get the spot. You'll notice these drivers all over the curbs. Conventional wisdom to not eat up those curves, but in these cup cars, you need to be all over them just to help these cars rotate.
Yeah, it does seem they are all over the place, Evan, but that's the true nature of the cars. You even see that in real life. They take up a little bit of the curbing so they can keep the car on track, because if they actually just go for a normal line, clean line, the thing is they can steer the car into one of the turns and basically lose control. And once you lose control of a NASCAR car, it's quite complicated for you to catch it. But it's going to be really interesting now with basically 6 laps complete. We're into our 7th lap basically. It's going to be really interesting to see how the drivers now are going to fare in terms of fuel strategy, because over here fuel is going to be quite important.
Yeah, and it's not going to be, apples to apples, if you would, compared to Sonoma races of the past, because we mentioned this racetrack gets significantly longer with the new format, a little bit shorter on laps, but you are going to have a little bit less fuel to go around. Would likely either see drivers go for the 2 or the 1 stopper, and of course, I think depending on tire fall off, 2 may be the way to go if you want to be on a conservative end. You don't have to save anything. There's plenty of radio chatter. Daniel Scott's off track. The 26 back in the pack got hit by Jared Mogard in a battle for 20th and 21st. You can see the back end damage on his Chick-fil-A Chevy. He got punted, and now he's going to go too far off and into the carousel. He is way wide, just narrowly avoiding that tire barrier. And Daniel Scott going to lose about a half a dozen spots this lap alone.
I'm just taking a look over here. He was 20th by the start of the lap already. He lost 6 positions. He loses a little bit more because he has to cool down those tires a little bit wide into the right-hand corners, into the right-hand hairpin. There is already a car right behind him in Eric Stanford, so he needs to mind those tires. The tire drop-off, you can say, it's pretty big because of the track temperature, and you have more turns than usual in comparison to the old track.
And a couple of battles on track, one of which, that battle for the race lead, starting to heat up once more. We had mentioned that Friedage was closing in on Kyle Kamer, but he tended to drop back just a little bit, but now it is a 3-way battle, because not only has Friedage of the 88 gotten back to the bumper of Kamer, but he's brought friends with him. That all-blue number 7 is third-placed runner Kyle Trudell. You can see just how far they are ahead of the battle for 4th on back where Liam Sheen is. That's about a 5-second difference between this battle for the lead and a battle for 4th way back there on the horizon. But Kyle Kamer's got his work cut out for him. We talked about drivers trying to conserve equipment, take it easy. Hard to do so when you have 2 of the fastest drivers in the series on your bumper and challenging for the race lead. We'll see if Kamer can stay cool here, or maybe gets forced into overdriving this race car. It's so easy to do here.
It's so easy to do over here as they come into the horseshoe, into turn at the exit of turn number 11, into turn number 12. Still keeping the car on track, still keeping the contact, but I got to give props to Kyle Trudell, because I was looking at him a few laps ago. He was basically at 1.2 seconds back to Fahrenheit. So in the last few laps, he had such a good pace that he managed to catch up all by himself. And here comes Fahrenheit already applying big pressure on Kyle Kamer.
He's looking to the inside, but again now through this portion of the racetrack as they go up turn number 3, and then this is that tricky turn number 4 down and into the infield part of the racetrack where they get down to about 45 miles an hour, and without really any actual curbing down there makes it so difficult. This is the circuit that IndyCar has been to for the last couple of trips, but of course all new in these NASCAR Cup machines. And You can see Trudell. I thought maybe as we've been on board with him here that he could find an opening on Friedage, because it seems Andrew with the 88 as he gets into the grass a little bit there that time. Left side tires off track, and that really got him loose and out of shape. That maybe Trudell could find an opening off of an 88's blunder. Has it happened? You're off of the back end. A race leader, Kyle Kamer.
Yeah, and Trudell really did try to find an open over there, just didn't find any room to work with. There was a small door that could have been open if Friedage actually went way too wide into the left side, and he could have gone into his inside, but didn't have any room to work with. As they're gonna close down lap number 8 and open number 9, this three-way battle is really heating up, and it's really good.
And I was just listening to the throttle there with Trudell, because a lot of the drivers were actually kind of focus grouping some info off each other in practice. I mean, asking each other, how aggressive are you guys getting onto the throttle? And they were all kind of in a consensus that you can't be any more than about 75% on the gas when you're down in low gears, first or second gear, well, that car's going to spin out. That's cold tires, that's used in tires or worked in tires. I mean, that's across the board. So feathering yourself back and into the gas means, of course, that backing up the corner is so critical here, where you can't just put the right foot down and get all that horsepower and torque to translate to immediate speed. You have to roll in and out of it here.
Yeah, it's a funny thing. It's unusual to see NASCAR cars rely on low gearing shifting, basically into a low rev shifting, to be more precise. Normally we see NASCAR cars go nearly up to the 9,000 RPM and then switch gears, first, second, third, and fourth. Here you basically go into 1,400, 4,500, maybe 3,500. So you can keep the car on track and have the most stability as possible, and then just rely on the charge to do the rest of the work and try to close down the gap into your opponent. But Cameron just opening a little bit of a gap in this S section, so he can have a little bit of room to breathe right now.
Yeah, he has an opportunity, and for him, I think ideally that battle for second and third kicks off, and he kind of has an opportunity to fly under the radar and be a little bit quiet. But I mean, these three are still by far and large the fastest cars on track, and we did have a change for position number 4. We talked about that battle with who was Liam Sheen. He was in the number 4 spot, but he has been overtaken by Michael Laraya. There they are now 7.5 seconds off of the race leaders. So even though those leaders can't get around one another, they are still pulling away some of Laraya up into the number 4 spot. That's where he started this race. And Liam Sheen drops back after being one of the fastest cars early on in this one. And there's a spot even further down the road, Rhett Nichols and Joseph Tice for 6th and 7th. Let's go on board with the 1 car here, chasing down the battle for P6. And the big thing I noticed there through the S's, Lorenzo, is kind of the difference between about a half a foot on or off of the curbs is what hurt that 1 car there, as Tice wasn't able to close the gap in on the 55. And as well, further up the road, a change for position number 2. Kyle Trudell has gotten around Andrew Friedage, and he'll now set his sights on trying to go to the top of the board.
Yeah, basically what happened to Farina is he made the same mistake he caught on cam a few laps ago. He ran way wide into the left-hand entry. There was a back marker nearly getting in front of Kyle Cameron over there for a second. I was just looking at the replay. That could have been a little bit scary, but Trudell, what happens is just saw Farina's going wide into the entry of the hairpin, right-hand hairpin, the slow one, and he just took the opportunity and made the move. Nice and easy, and now he's in P2.
Got a spinner in the carousel behind your race leaders. It is Steve Durham, a lapped car, so he's not in the way. You can see your race leaders were able to safely get on by as it was all behind him, but he was around back in traffic. Now, Kyle Trudell, he's trying to catch that top spotted Kyle Kamer as we're on board with him. Let's follow him down through the S's. And you can see Trudell getting a little bit more aggressive, Lorenzo, up and onto the curbs. If, he wants to get this job done, I'd give him about a 3 or 4 lap window, because I think any longer than that, these leaders actually going to start to catch up to the back of the field. They have been lapping a lot of slow cars, and by that I mean, cars that are off the pace, but they're starting to catch up to some of the cars in the low 20s who are, up to speed and in battles with each other, and that would really complicate things for both Kamer and Trudell up front. So enjoy the clean racetrack while you can as we work lap number 12 of 50.
Yeah, and for a road race, especially Sonoma, it gets more complicated because there are so many turns that you have no room to work with. I like to say pincher turns, where you kind of like box in, pinched in, and you cannot do any moves. As we see Trudell on the outside, a little bit of a late braking, basically synchronized with Kamer, but that doesn't find any room to work with. And I love seeing the care they put on those cars in terms of acceleration and braking. As I was telling you, just to see they keep the car just on the narrow edge of I like to say killing them, but it's not that such case as they go into turn number 1 and 2.
And you can see there's this constant accordion effect. The 7 of Trudell closes, but Kamer will beat him off of a quarter, and he will stretch it out. And, Friedage, no slouch here either. You mentioned that the only reason Trudell was really able to get the spot, but he did, is it was a small opening with the 8 of Kamer. A little bit of the back end out that time off that turn was the fact that he was able to exploit a mistake by Friedage. It's not like they just blew off the 88, so the 88 of Friedage still very much in this battle for third. There is a big mess on the front straightaway. The 43 is off track in front of this. The wreck on the front stretch is Thomas George. But again, no full course cautions in RSR Cup Series road racing. There's what's left of Thomas George after he got into the wall. And let's get a second look at what happened. McClendon up the road a little bit slow. And as they go into turn number 12, it was McClendon who wrecked in front and then took the 9 car out. So that's what happened to them. Thinnest part of the racetrack with that concrete barrier on both sides. There was nothing the 9 could do.
Yeah, basically collateral damage for Sean Callis. I was going to say Sean Callis, but it is, you guys just seen it. But no, we cannot blame McClendon. It's something that happens when you see the back move for the lead.
And that was a big mistake by Kyle Kamer. He just totally missed turn 11. He went way, way wide, and that is, I think, shades of Denny Hamlin blowing the final quarter and leaving the door open for Tony Stewart here a couple of years ago. He just went way out wide. Watch this. I mean, just completely missed the breaking point. You can see the car get sideways, and he had to go wide to catch it, and he had no hopes of getting it back in line in front of the 7. He did squeeze the 88 back out, though, to maintain P2, but a mistake is going to be what cost Kyle Camber the race lead, and for the first time tonight, it is Kyle Trudell out in front in the number 7 Ford Mustang.
Yeah, one Kyle out and another Kyle into the lead. But one thing that is going to be more interesting is that if they cannot solve this gap they are having with one another, it's when they started the lap, this half second from Trudell to Camber, and then 2 seconds to have 2 seconds between Camber and Farinas. The thing is, if they cannot solve themselves, Laraya is coming in quick. He's been doing fast by fast lap, just taking the chunk of time away from those 3, and he's nearly 1.7 away from Farinas. So we could have a 4-way battle anytime soon for the lead of this race.
He has done such an impressive job, and of course, he had just recently gotten back up to P4. As you can see him now hunting down what has been for a majority of this race a very clear top 3 breakaway. It was just a poor opening couple of laps for Laraya. That's how the likes of Liam Sheen, who started back in 9th, was able to pass him for position number 4, but he was able to get that spot back. It has been the best car on track pretty consistently the last couple of laps, although that last time through with a 1:40.9, Kyle Trudell was the fastest. But we talked about tire fall off, already looking at about 3 seconds of fall off per lap from lap 1 through lap number 15. So I talked about maybe the decision to go for the 1 stop or a 2. The tire fall off may lean them towards the 2-stopper. However, if that's going to be the play, pit stops happening in the next 5 laps. So you only have to get to lap number 25 to make this on a 1-stop. We'll see if they figure that the 3 seconds a lap difference could be enough to sway them either way on strategy. As here comes Laraya now looking to the inside on the 88 of Farinas. There they are behind the 8 car of Kamer. And Laraya has done it. Move him now into a race high P3.
Yeah, Farinas just having a lot of struggle to get that car on track, and the drop off has been huge for him. So good move on Laraya. He doesn't want to have any of it, so moving up.
And now we'll see if he's going to pull away from Farinas. As he got a little bit too wide that time through turn number 10. So that you can see he bobbled just a little bit, and that allows the 88 to close back in. So we don't think the lap time by Laraya, I should say, going to be that impressive. But he should start to pull away from Farinas. We talked about consequences earlier in this one. The fact that this could be the opportunity for a road course ringer to get a race win that they would not otherwise have, but it is previous race winners this year that are doing well so far. Your race leader Kyle Trudell, a race winner earlier this year, 1 time already. Kyle Kamer in the number 2 spot, driving the 8 machine. He is certainly somebody who could really stand to benefit because he is winless, and he is also, by the way, Lorenzo, 18th in the points. The top 16 go to the playoffs. So Trudell's got to win. Laraya, Farinas, they're fine, but this is a huge opportunity for the 8 machine, and if that mistake that cost him the number 1 position, as it looks like the 7 is pulling away, is what kind of ends his hope for the race win tonight. And I'm sure he'll be kicking himself. Granted, P2 points going to go great. He can still points his way in, but I'm sure he'd be a lot more comfortable if he got a playoff spot guaranteed with a win here tonight.
Yeah, any top 3 result for a driver that is relatively low in the standings will be perfect for Cameron. So he needs this top 3. If he can keep consistent and avoid Laraya to come in quick and steal that P4, it will be amazing for him, especially that Aberhart is not in this race. I said he was struggling to qualify. Actually, he's absent from this race. So it's going to be really interesting to see these drivers who specialize in road having good results and then moving up the standings, and that may fumble a little bit the standings for the playoffs when it comes to the final 2 races.
And we talk about, Kamer in P2. That would provisionally have him in a position where if he holds that, he would walk away with 35 points plus a bonus point for leading a lap. So that would mean he's guaranteed at least 36 points. Well, the guy in front of him with the points, Gary Sexton, where is he? Well, he's in 11th. That's not bad for Gary, but if the finishing results were to hold, Kamer would pass him in the points, and Scott McClendon had that wreck early. McClendon, the driver who came into tonight, 16th in the points on the bubble, only, I think, 9 points, or 11 points, I should say, actually ahead of Kamer. Well, McClendon is down in 28th spot and out of this race. So even if it is not a trip to victory lane for the 8 machine, Kyle Kamer should still stand to benefit a whole lot here this evening. You can see Sexton on track. He's gained 4 spots after starting 15th, doing everything he can in that dirty air Ford Mustang to get maximum points here from Sonoma. And Liam Sheen, I think, is in an incident.
Yeah, I was just seeing that as I was joining into the server. He had a contact with the number 12 of Justin Carey into the hairpin, and he just spun around.
Yeah, you'll see the replay here. Carey is a lapped car. This was not a battle for position. And Carey is going to go wide to give him the spot, but you can see the smoke there. It's just way too hot into the corner for Liam Sheen, and he cleans out the car that was in 24th.
Yeah, and that is probably going to damage his race a little bit, take the concentration off, but the 15 to 12 is a few spots back. He's in 24, and the chatter in the race over here is a little bit livid, but still drivers know what happened. It wasn't intentional, and they know about it. So the bench is going on good.
Yeah, they're having some fun on the radio. It would not be the first time in which we have heard some angry drivers. Here's an on-board shot as you take a look with Matthew Barra, one of the newer drivers to the series, has only had an opportunity to make some limited starts with us in 2020, and finally getting an opportunity to get on track as of this evening. For what I believe is his first official start, actually, of the year. So he's back in the number 16 spot, staying on the lead lap, working around Austin Wagner. So this is side-by-side for P15, and you can give it to the number 23 Toyota. Makes the pass on the outside line. I will say, out of all of the drivers who gave us some onboard cameras to look at tonight, Lorenzo, a lot of them rocking the VR. So looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah, the VR brings a little bit of a different dimension to the racing. Basically, it's the famous signature of the driver's eyes that we would like to see from the NASCAR drivers, NASCAR drivers, and so many other categories that we do something different, and it's really interesting to see.
Grant Davis, some other names kind of in the mix here at the back of the pack. Durham, Soa, some other drivers. Again, a lot of these cars now, the drivers who opted not to qualify. Davis started 25th. He's up to 18th, courtesy of really just keeping his nose clean and not much more, which is sometimes all you can ask for. Grant Davis has missed a lot of races. He served a suspension a little bit earlier in the season, and then actually just missed a couple of weeks after that, and it took him out of a playoff spot. Davis comes into this evening 23rd in the standings, with a long way to go to get into a playoff spot. So he's somebody else who is going to need, I think, a lot of points here this evening. But he may be a driver who needs a win. He actually drives for Flat Out Motorsports, and that is the team that leads the overall team points for RSR. It has been all season long a dead heat between Flat Out Motorsports, Aegis, and Steel Horse Racing. Lorenzo, we are 12 races in to this season. All of those teams, by the way, with at least 4 drivers, and after this many races, those 3 teams, their total points the three of them only separated by 3 points. So the team race in the championship so awfully close here. Not that it's worth anything officially, but certainly valuable for bragging rights, as we see now Michael Laraya has been able to chase down Kyle Kamer, and he's going to be putting the heat to him in a battle for second here shortly, but there is some traffic up the road.
Yeah, I can see the number 26 in the double zero from Daniel Scott and Jared Mogard right in front of him. I think that's also a battle for position. Yeah, that is a battle for position between Mogard and Scott. So that is going to affect how Kyle Kimmer will approach both of those drivers and clear themselves away. He looks on the inside, gets blocked off, and oh, there's the spun. The number 0 from Mogard is up.
Yeah, Mogard got dumped, and this is not done yet, because aggressively trying to get around now is the battle for second. You get a good look here. It was Daniel Scott on the bumper right there, looking to the inside, looking, and he just wouldn't lay off of him, hooked him around, and you mentioned that was a battle for position. I think he was encouraged to go because, of course, those leaders were catching up, and behind him or at Nichols off track. You can see David Washington, though, down pit road at lap number 20. So this is a kind of an interesting spot, Lorenzo. I think a little bit later than I would have expected if you're going for the 2-stopper. Maybe a little bit too early, though, if you're going for a 1-stopper. But David Washington gives up a good running spot. Last time by, he was scored in 9th, and he's really the first car to have come down pit road amongst your race leaders. Now Andrew Faridaj, I believe, as well, in the 88 machine, having completed service a couple of laps ago. So that leads me to believe that the 2-stop strategy may be the main one tonight.
I think the main strategy for most of the drivers will be that 2-stop. I totally can see, I was going to say Cameron and Laraya coming to the pit lane, but both Trudell, Laraya, and Cameron staying out. Liam Sheen as well. He missed a little bit of turn number 11. So those drivers probably thinking about the 1-stop, but I totally see the double stop being effective strategy as long as they can keep it on track and the traffic works their way. Fortunately, no yellow flags over here, which is not going to be enough for making up the time, so they need to resolve it on the track.
And by pitting, Faridaj falls down to position number 7. However, the last time by, he just put down a 139.0. Cars in second and third put down high 144 second lap time. So he is so much faster. And again, he'd actually just started to fall out of that battle for second and third. And those are not words that we normally use talking about Faridaj, of course, a 2-time defending champion of this RSR Full Throttle Cup Series powered by Boosted. So if everybody else as well goes for a 2-stop strategy, he is gaining a ton of time now. But if I was Trudell and Kamer and I was doing the same strategy as Faridaj, I probably would have followed him down pit road. I think those cars up front may be stretching this to go for the 1, and then we would be in store for a really interesting race if we get a good number of cars on 2 varying strategies to see which one pays out the best.
Yeah, and talking about strategy, he comes Michael Laraya into the pit lane. He's going to do his pit service, but he crashes on the entry both times. You can see this pit entry on Sonoma is a very tricky one because you have to brake and keep the car in control. You're going to see it on the replay. He dives into the pit lane on the left side. He's going to stick the brake a little bit. I think he's going to lose traction, and boom, right left-hand side, and a little bit of a nudge on the right entry, but I think that won't damage the car in terms of performing itself as he already into the pit stall.
Yeah, he's going to be in for 4 tires and fuel, so he'll be okay to go. Not only, of course, could that be some minor damage, but he gives up time by hitting into the wall and trying to recover that car. He doesn't spend any additional time in the box, though, to get damage repaired, so he's not concerned about it, and he will rejoin the circuit after giving up the number 4 position. So that cycles him now back through the field as we pick up him in P9. So he has been passed by Andrew Faridaj, who's already up to P4 as kind of the lead car, who's already come down to the pit lane 1 time this evening. the ball is kind of in the court now of your top three. What'll be the call for Trudell, Cameron, and Sheen? If they could go 3 more laps, they get to halfway in this boosted Club 50.
Yeah, I'm just taking a quick look over here on Trudell, as he already done turn number 10, going to turn number 11, and he's going to be out for 1 more lap. Let me see if Cameron's going to do the same. Just done turn number 10, and also doing the same. So strategies being called to those teams. Let's see if they can stretch it out for 2 more laps. If they do it, it's going to be real good for them, because they're going to have the tire advantage in comparison to foreigners, as we are seeing Liam Sheen into the pit lane.
Liam Sheen is going to come in, so he gives up the number 3 position, and he's actually on the pit lane right now. So you were just on the board with Friedage off and into the final corner. Look to the right-hand side, and you will see Friedage go past. There he is. So handily, Friedage again had been battling not that long ago in and around Liam Sheen, but of course, having been on the fresh rubber now for 5 laps, he has gained so much time that he is way out in front, but Sheen is in 23 laps down, 28 laps to go. That would be an awfully long way to push it for the second half of this race. So he's in and out. You can see a little bit of right rear damage on that Ford Mustang. Not everybody here. I don't think there's many cars at all that are completely clean. But now we wait once more. Trudell and Kamer, the top 2, leading the strategy for the cars who have not pit. But half the field overall has gotten some sort of service. Again, the lead car on the pit strategy so far. Friedage up to 3rd. He is 23 seconds, though, off of the top 2 as we pick up Dylan C. Jones, a driver who we have not talked much about this evening, and of course, haven't talked much about this year because he just made his debut on 2020 1 week ago. A longtime RSR veteran, late to competition this year. We are happy to have him with us, and he's looking to back up a top 10 finish in his season debut. The top 10 here tonight at Sonoma. He rides in P8.
Yeah, he rides in P8, and we just saw a move between him and Red McBride. So, McBride already moving up a spot. He hasn't done his pit service yet. Kyle Trudell and Cameron Steen for 1 more lap, and that Kansas race was very interesting. Quite chaotic at the end, but with a good win for Eberhard at the end. But closing a little bit at the standings, unfortunately for Eberhard, he's not present in this race, so he might drop down a few positions depending on the standings of some of the drivers on track.
Joseph Tice down pit lane. He was in position 4 when he opted to dive down it in. You can see his active spot, 7th, 8th, and it'll continue to drop down as cars still out onto the racetrack cycle through past him on by, but he is in the pit lane, and he'll as well go for 4 tires of fuel as well. Somebody that's working with a little bit of rear end damage on his number 1 Surge Chevy Camaro ZL11LE. So he is off and away at lap number 24. We still wait. Trudell, Kamer, looks like Nichols, McBride, Jones, all top 10 cars who have still yet to come down to pit road. I think at this point you're pretty much committed to going for the 1 stopper. It's just a question of how tight are they on fuel. Are cars going for a 2-stop strategy because they want to or because they have to? Kyle Trudell is in 1 lap shy of halfway home. He got 24 laps on fuel. He's going to have to go 26 if he can go the distance. But he's down pit road. Yeah, Kyle Kamer following him in. So that may be the limit. And if 24 is truly the maximum, they're going to be hard-pressed to go the distance. Andrew Friedage now cycles through, back to the race lead. We know the 88 is on a 2-stop call, but the cars are just pitted from 1st and 2nd trying to do a 1-stopper, but I'm not sure it's possible.
I don't think it's possible either. It will depend on how well they can save fuel for the final laps, and also how fast can Foreigners do his pit stop when he comes in about 18 laps time, 17 laps for his final service, which will be probably a splash and dash. You're just going to put a half can, maybe a full can of fuel, and then go out into the track. So interesting strategies, and all that matters for Foreigners right now is open up the gap as maximum as you can and hope the traffic works your way.
And of course, I feel like if there was any run in which it was going to be possible to go the maximum on the field, it would have been that opening run as Rhett Nichols gets off of the pit lane. And it's why we go back all the way to the start of this race when we had that standing start, Lorenzo. I mean, they saved fuel because they didn't have to go around and do a pace lap, so they had absolute maximum fuel. So even on the absolute max, I mean, you can't blame it on burning off fuel on a pace lap or anything. If 24 is the max, is a spin ahead of the top cars down there. You can see the onboard shot there with Kyle Trudell. That was awfully close. The spinner was initially Steve Durham. Now Trevin Valderrama is off track as well in the O2 machine, running in 20th. He's got no front end on his subpar racing Chevy. A lot of drivers, again, just trying to keep it all in one piece. There's the onboard, though, with Durham, who spun it out just as the 44 and the 7 were coming through awfully close. I'm sure the 7 saw his life flash before his eyes at that instant, but no contact between them.
Yeah, clean escape for both Cameron and Lariah. So I think both drivers appreciate the fact that they have Trudell and Lariah, and it was quite interesting to see a car. I would have probably had gotten the Colt Brown over there, but fortunately for both drivers, it was a slow speed corner and they can make it out easily and unscathed.
Matthew Mara, we talked about him earlier, and I do want to cycle back to the number 23 machine because he and Steve Soa are the only drivers who appear to be able to make this race on one stop guaranteed. They have not come down pit road, and as Mara comes to the completion of lap number 25, here he is headed down pit road. Of course, some a minute and 20 seconds behind the top car, but if we assume that is because in some part due to fuel saving, it is possible to do it on one stop. The next car, and I think the only other car who is yet to be down pit road, the 75 Bud Light Chevy of Steve Soa. He is actually going to stay out for a whole nother lap. So I guess it's possible if you can save the fuel, and if Soa can go 26, then maybe the likes of Trudell and others who pitted at 24 are going to be able to go the distance in this one, because Soa going down longer than anybody else has.
Yeah, you're compromising a little bit of your pace, but I think just taking a quick look, the practice laps, Soa didn't put any laps into his practice, so it's going to be really interesting for how much commitment are you going to go into your second stint when you don't have to be concerned about fuel, as you said. And so just running a little bit wide into the exit of turn number 4, just flipping the grass on the outside, but keeping the car under control. And here comes Farina, just right behind him to overlap him.
So he's going to get himself on through, and of course, what you need to hope for when you talk about sacrificing some pace as they're side by side, McBride in the 5 can work his way on through is, of course, you have to hope that the time that you are giving up by slowing down your pace is less time than you would give up by coming down to pit lane. And pit lane times here total about mid 40 seconds. You're going to give up about 45 or so seconds on pit road. I would add about 5 seconds to that because you got to slow down to get into the pit lane. You do have to get up to speed. So you're going to lose at least 50 seconds. So if that conservation is not more than 50 seconds necessary to get you to the end, in theory, that is a fuel strategy win. Soa is all the way at the very, very back of the lead lap, and he is still not pitting after 26. So I had very little faith, I'll be honest, Lorenzo, that Trudell and these other drivers, Kamer, were going to be able to go 26, but all of a sudden, I think that number's looking a lot more plausible here.
Yeah, it's looking a little bit more plausible lap by lap, and if Soa can actually stretch it out one more lap, I wouldn't be concerned if he wants to go full pedal to the metal and commit every single lap so he can actually be quick. I don't know if he's going to have the same pace as leaders. The best practice lap he did was a 142.7. It was nowhere close to Farina's, Trudell, Lariah, Hammer, Sheen, and even Thigh. So it's going to be really interesting how much commitment he's going to have from the 75 moving forward when he comes into the pit lane, because he's in a golden opportunity in terms of fuel. He won't have to, like you said, save and take the paddle extra a little bit more percentage off every single lap.
He is going to be able to push on the second half of this race. He did just get lapped. Race leaders went on by him. There's a look as we go down the end of the drag strip and back up and onto the racetrack. The number 88 machine of Andrew Ferdinand. Again, don't forget, through all of this, he is your race leader, having pitted 10 laps ago. If he wants to go the distance, though, he would have to do about 33 laps on fuel, and while Soa's current 27 lap stint is encouraging, I just don't see 32 happening. So again, we think that him and maybe as well somebody like a David Washington, who pitted a little bit earlier in the run, those drivers may be forced to go for the two-stop strategy. And again, Ferdinand was not the fastest. Before he made that decision, I wonder if that was kind of an audible, because he had just started to fall off. I believe it was in P4. We saw the top three pulling away. Maybe he's thinking, listen, I can go for the one-stop strategy like everybody else. Maybe he's thinking that's what everybody was going to do, and I may not win this race because I'm not faster. So maybe the whole reason why Ferdinand goes a little bit different is to just try something. Again, a three-time race winner. He's well locked into the playoffs as your championship points leader, so you can afford to maybe take those gambles when you're only chasing checkered flags and the points really don't matter.
Yeah, especially if you're basically in a safe zone for a top 5, which grants you so many points and basically puts you into comfort zone when you go into the playoffs. So for Reyners, it's going to be really interesting, because I think he's taken a little bit out of a backstep into these last laps, 140 into the 40 average, and then 41 into these last 2 laps. Whereas Trudell, he doesn't care. He basically set the fastest lap on the race in lap 26. 137.6, and then 138 or 139. So Trudell is closing in, and he wants to close in fast because the gap is down to 2.8 seconds.
And just to put a bow tie on that strategy, Steve Soa did pit, so he was able to go 27 laps maximum, but he has now brought that car in for service. He is in it out. So if 27's the max, certainly I think with a bit of conservation, Trudell, Kamer, Sheen, and others are going to be able to stretch this one out to the end of the race. The question is, can Frida still go for an additional stop and make it happen? And honestly, as you mentioned, Trudell closed it in on him in the battle for the race lead. There's Soa and Kalis battling back a lap down, but for position in 16th and 17th spot, as we have about 6 cars in this race a lap down, and you can go all the way down to P24. Michael Mosier 7 laps down as cars that are still in this race. Every single position matters, but I do think Trudell is about to catch your race leader Ferdinand in about a half a lap or so, just based on the pace. He is consistently about 2 seconds faster per lap on the fresher Goodyear Eagles.
Yeah, you can see now gap is about 1.3 seconds as they head out at turn number 4 into turn number 5, and now down into the carousel. There's a back marker right in front of Foreigners. That is the 54. Just taking a quick look over here of Michael Moser, and they clears them off. He also clears both off. Both Trudell and Foreigners are gone, but now the damage has been done. It is under a second. He can catch the draft a little bit, save a tiny amount of fuel with Trudell, so he's in a golden position right now to save fuel, be effective, put a little bit of pressure on Foreigners, and if he finds the opening, go for the lead.
Drove it in real hard that time down into turn number 11, and you can see him close in almost to just about a car length off of the back bumper of the 88 machine. He is so much faster, but again, assuming Trudell goes the distance here, I don't see there's any way that Ferdinand can get away with the second pit stop, give up about that 50-second, basically time penalty that it takes to get fresh tires and fuel and then catch back up. I think the one-stop call is going to be the race winning one here, but how hard is the 88 going to make the 7's life here? Does he let him go, or is he going to make this difficult on the 7? Because we are watching the battle for the race lead as we work lap number 31 of 50.
It's tricky. It's a tricky question. If I was for Reners right now, I would try to make it as hard as I possibly can. But Trudell already trying to have a look on the inside, down into the carousel, just keeping a close contact between him and Reners. Also done. Here they come into another turn, which is the right-hand side, the right-hand hairpin, the slow hairpin. Later braking for Trudell, and basically the gap is about 0.2 seconds between both drivers as they head into the S's.
And I mean, certainly Trudell's getting held up here. He is faster than Andrew Friedage. There is no doubt about that. Again, I mentioned about 2 seconds quicker, but he needs to find a way through, looking to the left-hand side as he tries to squeeze in turn number 8. It's not going to happen there. Now the left-hander through 9 and through 10. Heavy braking point into turn 11. Does he go for the bonsai move? No. Trudell taking his time, and this is exactly what Friedage wants to do, is just basically take those preferred lines away and hold that 7 car up any little bit. Can certainly make his chances better in the battle for the win later.
Yeah, 142 now for Reners, whereas Trudell basically does it 42. Gap will eventually come down between Lariah and Trudell. Right now is about 7 seconds between the 44 and the number 7. So if he's able to hold a few, I would say 5 more laps, I would say that the Lariah could come in into a long shot move and try to take Trudell away from P2 and eventually P1 for Reners, and that would be really interesting, but it's going to be really complicated because they're going to be burning out fuel and tires as well, and that's one thing they really don't want to do with 18 laps to go.
All the way to the bumper that time. One of my favorite things as well about this road racing in these cars is the constant communication between drivers on the radio. And in a perfect world, we could just play that for you, and you could listen to all the different drivers trying to negotiate, getting out of the way for the race leaders. However, not 100% of the time is it broadcast approved language on the radio. But so far, so good tonight. Again, nobody really in any sort of exchanges. We have seen some bits of contact, but I think for the most part, everybody recognizing that none of that has been intentional. We have seen, though, some heated moments in the last couple of weeks, and that is why we don't have open driver radio, but we can listen in and pass on any excitement. But it is just a lot of guys kind of giving a heads up when they see the leaders coming up behind them. Where do you want me to go? I'll give you the inside, I'll give you the preferred lane. All very promising and sportsmanlike amongst these drivers. As this time through, there's 18 laps to go. Kyle Trudell struggling here, and if this continues, Michael Lariah from third is going to catch up to them. He is a second faster than this duo every single lap, but he was basically out of the battle for the race lead. But if the 88 continues to hold the 7 up, Lariah could re-enter the picture.
Yeah, and this is something I think Trudell really doesn't want, because he was already basically together with Lariah when they came out of the pits. They were close together. Unfortunately, traffic came to the play for Lariah, and he broke off a little bit. And here comes Trudell, applying pressure on the carousel on the inside once again. But Reners not flinching one bit and closing the door once again. But now here comes they coming to turn number 6. And now that could be a golden opportunity for Trudell if he finds the opening for late braking. But there's the back marker right in front of him, and I think that is the number 2 of Trevin Valderrama as they clear themselves out of the way. And you were mentioning about the communications. I come more of a road, background than the ovals. I do, engine stuff. It's more unusual for us to see this kind of communication than oval races in general, not just in the oval courses, but the road courses with the NASCAR. So it's cool sportsmanship from the drivers from the back, trying to clear themselves out, make sure they don't get away in the pace of the leaders.
Yeah, it's almost kind of the opposite of I think what it is normally, and it's a lot of the time I think in more conventional road racing, it's kind of the onus is on the lapped car to not get in the way, but the lead car, the fast car, has to execute a clean pass. Whereas here tonight, it seems like the drivers have kind of taken it on themselves that if you're the slow car, it's your job to get out of the way, and your race leaders have been appreciating that, I think.
Yeah, I think they're going to be appreciative of that. I've seen a few of the guys just saying thank you, or not only in the chat, in the voice chat, but also in the text commands. So it's good to see these banter from the drivers. They're appreciative of the room they're being given. They're trying not get in the way of the race. And here comes Throttle once again having that look, and he's going to be constantly applying that pressure on Foreigners so he can make the breaking point.
Curious how long he waits until he goes for the bumper, because again, Michael Laraya, fastest car on track once more the last lap, but in fact Kamer right there with him in the high 140 seconds. But that third placed car was once upon a time more than 8 seconds away from the battle for the race lead. And I think this time by, he'll be less than 4. He's just behind. You can see him at the entrance of the S's there. He just got around the lap car in Trevin Valderrama. But Throttle, being patient with Frenage here, is going to bring the 44 into a battle that admittedly, after the pit cycle, he had no business being a part of. The 7 hanging it out that time. He is certainly getting a little bit more antsy as we see Sean Kalis coming to pit lane a little bit up the road. He'll be down pit road for his second trip down. So that is one of the cars certainly on the 2-stop strategy. That'll be his final pit stop tonight.
Yeah, and Throttle just slipping on the inside of turn number 10 on the entry, and that offsets the car a little bit. It makes the car more live because you're catching a little bit of patch of grass and sand, and you lose all the entire grip. But unfortunately for Throttle, was just under a little patch. It wasn't a big chunk. If it was a big chunk, he probably would have snapped the oversteer of the car and lost control. But you were saying 3.5 seconds between Throttle and Laraya. Now it's 2.6 between Throttle and Laraya. So Laraya is coming quick, hungry, and he wants that P2 and P1. And
that's why if I'm Throttle, I mean, I don't want to make an enemy out of Andrew Frida. He's the fastest guy in the series. Of course, we mentioned it, a multi-time champion in this, a 3-time race winner this season. But, Kyle Throttel's got speed, don't get me wrong. A race winner from earlier this season as he took home a checkered flag at Talladega. But there it is to the inside on the 88 car. And he's got the spot, but not clear. Side by side through the S's. Frenage will not roll over. And Throttle has to tuck in line once more. A golden opportunity. But in road racing, the inside in one turn means that you're likely the outside in the next one. And that's how Frenage got back in front. Let's take a look at the onboard of how this happened at the end of the drag strip. Just a little bit wide, an aggressive drive in, and honestly, Throttle had the nose, but again, that next turn was a left-hander. You just really can't do those S's side by side, and Frenage wins the game of chicken to stay out in front. He stays P1. Throttle stays second, and Michael Laraya in third. Now only 1.7 seconds off. There he is, closing in from third.
Already looming large into the back bumper of Cal Throttle. Laraya, 1.3 seconds, 1.2, and it decreases ever so slightly turn by turn. So Throttle's time is running out, unless he's actually trying to save fuel, but as much fuel as it can possibly save, and then make the overtake on Foreigners. But here's the thing, if I was him, I would have been more aggressive into the inside, and there's no room to make work again. Foreigners blocking the way in midway through the turn.
And he's got a little bit of a better run that time at the bottom of the carousel through turn number 6. He's looking to the inside as they go out to 7. But it is not going to happen, and now a lot can be reflected on Michael Laraya here, because is the 44 going to give the same courtesy to Throttle as Troutell's been given to Frenage, or is the second he gets to him, is he going to put a bumper to him and move him out of the way or be more aggressive? There is some lap traffic up the road from the battle for the race lead. It's just Daniel Scott, and it's on his own, so there is no battle blocking the racetrack in front. But of course, when your race leaders catch that 26, there he is already in turn number 11, could be a factor. But you're on board with the 7, trying to the inside in turn 11, and he's got alongside, side by side for the race lead at lap number 36. Long way around through turn number 12. It's a lap lead for Trudell, but he can't hold it into turn 1. Here comes Lariah now looking. Trudell now back to the inside. A great battle for the lead as Ferdinand hangs on. The 7-car bobbles, and Michael Lariah from an 8-second deficit has taken away second.
Nice move from Lariah, being the opportunistic route, just plain impatient. He saw that Trudell was a little bit hungrier than usual coming into the exit of turn number 11 and into turn number 12 side by side, and Farina will eventually have the upper hand. Now here comes Trudell once again into the inside, and it's going to be really interesting, that exit of the carousel. And eventually Trudell will get that P2 spot back, and Lariah just losing a little bit on the exit, clipping the grass on the outside part of the carousel.
And again, this battle for second is in effect the battle for the race win. If Andrew Friedrich can continue to hold them off in the current battle, that's fine. But again, I just don't think that Friedrich can go the distance having what would need to be a 33-lap run to get to the end of this. So it is really only Trudell and Lariah, I think, battling around the 88 car. You can see you're looking off of the bumper of race leader Andrew Friedrich, that the 7's closed in back and has gained a little bit on Lariah, but I think the real fight here is between the 7 and the 44, and Friedrich is just doing his best to get a best with both of them here and try to slow them down. Again, 33 laps, I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, and Trudell a little bit wobbly on the exit of turn number 12 with the car into the track. Here's another factor, Evan. I've been looking on the previous laps. This fight has been so ardent and has been so bad, has been a back and forth between pressure and overtake attempts, that we forgot to see Kyle Cameron. Kyle Cameron now 5.4 seconds behind Lariah, and he's been one of those fast guys as well, just to Cameron. So 1 second quicker than Lariah and Trudell and Farina. So he could come another guy into the fray and be that fourth man for a four-way battle for the lead and podium.
And he was able to squeeze through on the inside of turn number 6. After about 8 laps of trying, Kyle Trudell has finally broken clear of Andrew Friedrich. There will not be a counterpunch. I think the 7 car has got this thing, and expect to watch him running away into the sunset. So now there's a lot of pressure on Lariah in third. He was able to close in on the 7, but again, I think at pace, when they are both with clean racetrack, I think the 7 is better. So if Lariah wants a real shot at the race win here, he needs to pass Andrew Friedrich, and he needs to pass him now. Looking to the inside, Friedrich drives it in hard. No freebies, but he drives it in too hard, and in the process opens up the door, and that's how Lariah is going to get through for second.
Textbook maneuver for Lariah. You know, I'm going to put that car on the inside. I'm going to make a feint on making an overtake. He just brakes a little bit, and right at the precise braking point, allow for Enos, you know, I'm going to play defensive over here. Brakes a little bit wider than usual, goes more, again, wide, and loses a lot of speed. He clips the curve now on the exit of turn number 3, but allows, again, Lariah to make that move nice and clear. That is a beautiful textbook maneuver. Now the problem is for Reynolds, he could lose that P3 to Cameron, because Cameron hasn't lost the lead ever since they started battling for those top 3 positions.
Yeah, we'll see what Cameron's pace is. Again, it's not apples to apples, a phrase that I've used a couple of times tonight, but the last lap, Cameron was 3 seconds better than Friedrich. Granted, Friedrich probably a little bit slower up in front of the field, but I do think Cameron's going to get to him. The big thing I'm worried about, if I'm Andrew, not necessarily just hold it on to third, is hold it on to a top 10. Again, if he has to come down pit road, that's about 50 seconds that he would have to throw away. Well, if you look 50 seconds behind him, you get close to David Washington in 9th, and we'll find out, I think, shortly if Friedrich will be pitting or not. And again, if he does so, He'll probably be out towards the back of the top 10 if he's unable to go the distance on fuel. And even the cars in front of him, their fate's not certain. Kyle Trudell, 15 laps into this run, with 11 laps to go, he's going to have to make this fuel and tires last 26 laps. It's doable. We've seen a single car, Steve Soa, do more than 26 laps. So it's possible with some, what we think, tire and fuel saving. Well, the 7 hasn't been able to save any fuel over the course of the last few laps because he's been battling. He may now try to do that from the race lead. Laraye has even less fuel on board. He pitted 3 laps earlier than Trudell, so he would have to stretch 29 laps. Again, nothing guaranteed amongst your leaders.
And we are seeing over here in the replay with Bradley Burke. He was in 11 as he goes turn number 4. He's struggling a little bit with the car control itself, and then he's gonna outbrake himself in turn number 5. Locks up the brake. He loses mid-way turn, and he managed to park in the worst part of the track. I don't see him coming out anytime soon from there, Evan.
Yeah, he was stuck. I mean, I was worried that he was actually going to go into the end of the tires there. We saw somebody else go off track a little bit earlier in this race and just keep it inside the tires, but there it is. He is going to take the toe to pit road. One mistake, and when you get out in the grass, which here at Sonoma is just basically all dry and dead. If we raced here in the springtime, it would look nice and green, but NASCAR normally makes it stop here in the summer, and the grass is all dried out. I mean, there is no stopping that race car, and I think Bradley Burke would have been better off, actually, Lorenzo, to go into the tires, because he just could have backed it out and kept going. He was stuck there, and he's probably going to have to hold for 4 or 5 minutes before he's allowed to get back on track. A top 10 run going to be evaporated.
Yeah, he had a 11th place top 10 run, was in the cards for Bradley Burke. Fortunately for him, he's not going to have that ultimate position. He was in 10th in the standings, so that might set him back a few positions by the end of the race. So standing wise, this was a catastrophe. Of course, not by his own fault. It is the nature of the track. It isn't easy for you to drive, so he's going to be sent back a few positions, that's for sure, but not a best result for the number 95 car.
And when we talk about all these battles, we are inside of the final 10 laps in this Boosted.Club 150. All races this year powered by our friends at Boosted, the place where gamers and creators go to monetize digitally. Their team will build you a totally free e-commerce store and help get sponsorships for those looking to build their brand online. Go to Boosted.Club for more information. And you're watching this battle now at the end of the chicane to the inside and on through. Kyle Kamer makes the pass on Andrew Friedage for 3rd and 4th position. The 88 car drops now down to where he was before the pit cycle began.
I think Farina just is aware that he cannot put a fight anymore, and he just lets Kamer in the most safe way possible into the S's without losing too much time. I think now the thing for Farina is just mind that 42 gap. He nearly has a contact with Kamer on the exit of turn number 11, was just scraping the back end of that number 8 car. So close call for Kamer. He could have been spun around and lost a few spots back, and that tire wear would have gone up to the roof.
And we've seen how little contact is necessary for these cars to get turned around after we saw a car spin out right where these cars are now a little bit earlier in this race when some lapped cars were battling in front of a battle amongst lead lap cars. But, I mean, if I'm Friedage, there's really not much more I can lose now. I'm 11 seconds ahead of the next car. That's Liam Sheen in P5, so I would just bite the bullet and come down pit road now. I mean, he's gonna try to stretch the fuel. He's gonna try to go, but again, granted, I'm not a driver, not a crew chief. Maybe you could do 33 laps, but the fact that the longest run we've seen out of anybody was 27, and it was by, we mentioned so a few times tonight, really saving the fuel. I just don't see a car at pace with the race leaders going 6 further than that, but you never know. He's trying, but not at all shocked if that 88's down pit road shortly.
Yeah, and racing is about full of surprises. You can have a guy that Breener's just going for the Hail Mary move, but I can see him struggling so much with grip. Each of those asses, he has to counter steer the car basically at the exit of every single turn. So I agree 100% with you. If I'm Breener's, I would go for the pit stop right now. Maybe put some tires in, one can field, and that's all probably going to be by the end of the race. It's going to be about 8, 7, 6 laps if you go into the pit lane right now. And you would be fine for the rest of the race. You probably would lose maybe 2 to 3 spots as I'm looking over here into the leader standings in terms of relatives between drivers.
And that constant communication amongst drivers continuing as everybody is trying to stay out of everybody's way. This time by, it was 8 laps to go for Kyle Trudell at the front of the field. I am impressed, though, with the pace of Ferdinand, that once Kyle Gamer has gotten around him, he's not just running away with this thing. I thought that Ferdinand may have really fallen off, but he is losing ground, but it is not at an insane pace. So it goes to show you still got a fast car. Again, it just goes to kind of what strategy you opted to go for. Bradley Burke, by the way, talking about him earlier, he is back on track in P15, still just a lap down, so it could have been a lot worse. He drops 4 spots overall after getting beached out behind the tires.
Yeah, so you can get beached down a little bit on the tires, losing 15, losing, if I recall, probably 4 spots. So keeping him within the top 15, it isn't a bad thing after all. But you need to mind that there is a guy named Steve Soa right behind him. But the thing is, Steve is doing 145, so he's not being able to be as fast as Bradley Burke has been ever since he came out of that pit and when he got the tow.
He just hasn't been at that same pace, and of course, Soa trying to chase him down in that exchange has got a ways to go if he's going to get up and into that spot. As you can see, the field is well strung out. The next closest battle for position, Liam Sheen, or it was Joseph Tyson, Brett McBride actually, as they are in turn number 9, now turn number 10. There they are. The battle for 6th and 7th is it's McBride looking to the inside as he heads off and into turn 11. Can't make it happen now. This is the best stuff right now on track when it comes to a battle, and that one car, Tice pushing it. He was way sideways off of the turn.
Yeah, the Tice car just a little bit livid. That Camaro just saying, I'm just going to go a little bit wobbly sideways and we're going to have a little bit of fun. I guess at turn number 11. So Ty's just having that good car control, but allows Red McBride to come in into turn number 3. They go number 1 and then going to go into the right side for turn number 4. Unfortunately, if it was on the old layout, then Brad could have thought about making an overtake, but this is so short that McBride cannot do any overtakes, and he has to hang back until they get in carousel for him to be thinking about a move.
It's all about setting up the moves, and oftentimes, you don't catch somebody and then instantly execute the pass the next time through. Oftentimes, setting up a pass is kind of a combination of the 2 quarters before that, positioning yourself to be able to take advantage of it. Here's a hard braking zone, but it wasn't enough of a run at a 6 in that carousel for him to get the entrance. But the one car a little bit wide. Tice is really loose, but I know they all are, but Joseph Tice, I think, is driving that race car so hard. While McBride's a little bit more in control. The one is getting about 110% out of that race car. He's giving it everything he's got right now.
Yeah, last 2 laps, I'm just taking a look over here for Tice, were a 44.6 and a 44.9. So there is a clear look that he's struggling with your grip as they come into turn number 11. McBride a little bit more aggressive on the braking, just sticking on the inside of turn number 11. And again, the car of Tice getting wobbly on the exit, but less wobbly than the previous lap, so he can keep the car afloat and again a little bit of margin in comparison to the number 5 car.
I always get so nervous when they're so close to those tires down in turn number 11 that you can just clip them and basically, just get stuck in them. And not afraid to admit that in my couple of trips around Sonoma that I have done that once or twice, and we've seen that happen in the past here at RSR competition at Sonoma. This is a race that has been on the calendar for going on 6-7 years in a row every summer. And continues here tonight in 2020 with the Full Throttle Cup Series powered by Boosted. You're off of the back of Tyson. It's a little bit tough to see that time, but he was way sideways again, just pushing this car totally. But for the moment, it's working, assuming that he can stay mistake-free.
Yeah, and he's working with that car. He's having a major workout. Once again, wobbly at the exit of the carousel. He's working that throttle. That throttle just wants to go and overspin that car again at the exit. He's working hard, that car, but still being relatively fast, 143.3. The last lap of McBride, just keeping in touch over 143 as well. Just marking him and finding and waiting for the perfect spot for him to make an overtake.
Actually pulling away that time through turn number 10 and now down into 11. They're going to work around lap traffic, Matt Marr, but again, this is the best battle for position on the racetrack. As that time through, it was 5 laps to go for your race leaders. Still no trip, though, down pit road for Farinage. We'll continue to watch the 1 and the 5 duke it out, but again, the 88 still yet to come. He has been on this set of tires and on this fuel for now 28 and a half laps. It is now officially the longest stint of the night, but these next 4.5 laps going to feel like an eternity.
Yeah, and it's going to be an eternity for Farinage. Those tires must be crying by now, crying for help every single lap. The Farinage doing a massive work, and Thighs just, again, another save. He's been saved. He just had out of turn number 4. Here comes into the exit of the carousel, clipping on the grass, and now for Matthew Mara just ahead of him, also clipping on the grass. That opens for Red McBride coming into the inside. He has a look, not enough room to go and put that car in to make the overtake. So he's gonna be riding passenger for the Asses one more time.
This time by 4 laps to go from Sonoma. That means just about 7 minutes of racing left until we take the checkered flag for round number 13. An off week next week out. No Full Throttle Cup Series action. Instead, all the drivers in this series going to be participating in a fun event, a full 400 lap race at the North Wilkesboro Speedway in the 1987 NASCAR Cup Cars. Non-TV, no points, just a fun event to fill in the off week. We'll be back with coverage for round number 14 late this month on the 29th as we go racing from the Pocono Raceway for 75 laps of action. So a little bit of a fun event next week, but a long one still at that. But these drivers with an off week on the horizon, and they want to go into a week of a break on a good note. But I'm impressed that Tice has been able to keep the 5 at bay for as long as he's been able to.
Yeah, Thighs just having a massive work, and McBride with a massive spin. The car just offsetting to turn number 4. Great save from McBride. I would have saved that car, but he loses about half a second in the process and allows Thighs to have a little bit of room to breathe after holding back that number 5 for so long, at least 4 laps in my count.
It was a real impressive save, and I think now we've kind of seen the roles reverse. It's McBride driving the car hard, and I think he had been at a more consistent, comfortable pace in catching the 1, but again, Tice is so good on the ragged edge that it has forced McBride to get a lot more aggressive, and you could see the 5, at least in that case, too aggressive on the brakes in turn 4, nearly spun it out. That mistake may be what hands Joseph Tice the P6 finish here tonight from Sonoma, California. Kyle Trudell, though, already on lap number 48 in this race up front. He is 8 seconds ahead of second-placed runner Michael Araya. They stay ahead of Kyle Kamer, 17 seconds back in third, just a little bit up the road of Andrew Farinage, who has now gone 30 laps on fuel. He may just make it all the way as you look at the 7 car leading this race all on his own up front and with cruise control on.
Yeah, for Trudell, if he keeps going like this is going to be a great result for him, which will make him more comfortable. Might snatch P3 out of Eberhard in the standings, and he's probably going to be really close to Lariah in for the P2 spot in the standings when they have that off week, and then they come back for the next round, which will be at the circuit of Pocono, like you said a few minutes ago.
That's the 44 machine there of Lariah. There is no traffic either in between he and race leader Trudell, but there is lap traffic behind them. You can see the likes of Brian Chambliss tucked in line, Sean Kalist going wide, and then back to Kamer, who, being 17 seconds off of the race leader, is about 9 seconds off of Lariah in position number 2. But again, at this point, they are in the mode of just don't make any huge mistakes. You spin the car out, you don't need to. There's no immediate battles amongst the 9 cars that have stayed on the lead lap in this one. Just get it to the checkered flag in one piece.
Yeah, you put the nail on the head. You basically take your foot off an extra bit. You know, just keep the car on track, and you're gonna have a great result. Especially for Cameron, we were saying earlier, is a guy that's been running on the bubble for the standings, so it's going to be amazing for him to, you know, getting a top 3, getting that boost of confidence, moving into the second half of this championship, and then try to get closer into the playoff picture. And as we were saying, with this result, we'll definitely get into that playoff picture, maybe top 15, maybe P14. We'll have to see by the end of this race, and once the points are all computerized.
We had a wreck back in the pack. Gary Sexton took out lead-lapped car David Washington, so there really were no consequences. Washington doesn't lose anything. Sexton doesn't gain anything, but those are some drivers who had been exchanging words on the radio a little bit earlier on in this race. But again, nobody really gains anything. Nobody loses anything. So I think they're going to get away with that one relatively scot-free as Kyle Trudell, 49 laps down. He takes the white flag presented by iRacing, final trip around in wine country.
Yeah, and Kyle Trudell just having a great race, the perfect race, you know, just managed to save as much fuel as he could possibly save behind Farinas. Found the perfect spot, applied pressure, just, you know, keeping the car on track, avoided the problems when they had in the first stint, you know, just when they were into a 4, maybe 3 car battle where they could have possibly a more chaotic. So being rewarded with a win, that will be amazing for that number 7 car.
And of course, we mentioned a previous race winner this season for the 8th race of 2020 at the Talladega Superspeedway. That locked him into the 2020 postseason. But as we kind of talked about earlier on this evening, that does not mean that there was nothing on the line, because for every race win that a playoff driver accrues over the course of the 20-race regular season, they will receive 3 bonus points ahead of everybody else to start the round of 16. So this feels good now, and it'll feel good later this season when Trudell has a little bit more of a buffer when the playoffs kick off at Darlington in September. Final time, the right hand can't get out, down to turn number 11 for Kyle Trudell. Started in second, went for the one-stop strategy at halfway home, and is going to get the job done in Sonoma. Final time, turn 12, and Kyle Trudell wins in Sonoma, California in 2020.
Michael Araya now just coming into the start-finish line for P number 2, and then Kyle Cameron just now done with turn number 11 and rounding out the podium in your P3, that number 8 car. As you guys can see on the left-hand side, the big ups and downs of this race, with bigs up for Mara, 10 spots up in this race, Evan.
Yeah, a lot of big gains. You mentioned Mara, Grant Davis behind a +12, Steve Soa +15, Mogard +10, Valderrama +12. That all goes back into what I mentioned right off at the very start of this race, and that is that survival, staying on track through all of it, getting through all 126 miles of racing was critical, and at the end of the day, that number 7 sheet of Kyle Trudell right there did it faster than anybody else. By the way, Ferdinand was able to do it on fuel, 33 laps. So drivers erred on the side of caution early and went for that long run late. Very impressive.
Yeah, very impressive stint from Ferdinand. You know, just taking I think what happened to him, he tried to clear as much gap as possible. He thought probably it wouldn't work at the end of the day. He's going full paddle to the metal. I think he got a little bit on the back foot, just took a little bit of the pad off the gas. As you can see, Job just celebrating right about on turn number 11, where there is the Sonoma and the NASCAR markers on the ground. But the day is his. He's all entitled to celebrate this victory, a hard-earned victory with the 7 car.
Yeah, celebrating where they used to have the extra bit of pit road that was known as Gilligan's Island, where they would send cars to pit there because there wasn't room for all the NASCAR Cup Series cars to pit on the actual pit lane. But that now long gone, and serves as a good opportunity for him to celebrate as he is the race winner in tonight's Boosted Club 50, and some more burnouts to mark the occasion as well. We'll take a quick opportunity to step aside, and when we come back to the virtual Sonoma Raceway, we'll talk with the top finishers and get you set for that trip out to Pocono in 2 weeks' time. You're watching the 2020 Real Sim Racing Full Throttle Cup Series, powered by Boosted. Post-race action is next on RacespotTV.
We are back at North Wilkesboro, North Carolina, where the field is rolling out for the start of today's 400-lap race on this .625-mile racetrack. And just as the field comes all around turn number 4, the sunshine peeks through, helping warm things here. Bill Elliott leads him down. Benny Parsons on the outside. The green flag flies, and the first Union 400 Winston Cup race from North Wilkesboro is underway. Everybody nicely through turns number 1 and 2 as Bill Elliott has the lead, and Dale Earnhardt has jumped into second position, followed by Benny Parsons and Bobby Allison. Oh, here we go. It's just about to go away. They both coming out of turn 4. Earnhardt gets the lead. We had just heard from our spotters that Neil Ryan. Dale Earnhardt is on his last lap. This will be his 24th career win. Dale Earnhardt wins the first Union 400 at North Wilkesboro.
And back live for the virtual Sonoma Raceway, where RacespotTV's coverage of the 2020 Real Sim Racing Full Throttle Cup Series, powered by Boosted, continued with tonight's Boosted Club 50, as our first road course race of 2020 is in the back pocket. Happy to have you with us for RacespotTV as post-race action. Up next with our producer Hugo Luis, myself, Evan Pasoko, and Lorenzo Bonder. And we'll go trackside and talk with your top finishers in just a moment. First, let's take a look at tonight's full race results. You can see the top 10 there. We'll be trackside with Trudell, Lariah, and Kamer momentarily. They're your top 3. An impressive fuel stretch at the end allows Andrew Freitas to beat Liam Sheen for 4th and 5th. Joseph Tice ends up in the number 6 spot, holding off Rhett McBride in one of the best battles late in this race. Rhett Nichols finishes at 8th, and David Washington 9th is the final driver to finish on the lead lap. First driver 1 lap down in 10th. Lorenzo is Brian Chambliss.
Yeah, and we are overseeing him. San Diego in P11. Matthew Mara just right behind him. Ben Davis in 13, followed by Bradley Burgess. Managed to, get a top 15 after the incident he had in the middle in the second half of the race. Gary Saxon in 15th. Steve Soa with the monster 27 stint at the start of the race before he went into the pits. In P16, Jared Mogard, Daniel Scott in 17 and 18 respectively. Sean Callis and then Trevin Valderrama round out your top 20.
And continuing on through 21st position, Justin Carey, Michael Mosier 22nd, and I believe those were the final drivers to actually make it the distance. So it'll be DNFs likely for 23rd on back. It includes Durham, Jones, George through 25th, Austin, Wagner, Michael Kaczynski, Adam Benefiel, Scott McClendon, and Eric Stanford through 30th, with rough trips to the racetrack for Brandon Osborne and Khalil Gillen 31st and 32nd. Let's go trackside and talk with your race winner tonight. It is Kyle Trudell from Sonoma Raceway for the second time this year, a race winner at the RSR Full Throttle Cup Series. Kyle, congratulations on the win, and just kind of tell us about how you fought through this race. The likes of Michael and the other Kyle, Andrew Friedage, I mean, all those names up and in the mix, and at the end of the day, it's the number 7 who comes out in victory lane.
Yeah, pretty exciting, man. I live like 3 hours from this track, so I consider it home track for sure. And so I better be good here. Been to it many times and enjoyed, several races. But it developed interestingly. I wasn't anticipating that I would have that much speed. I kind of was surprised by my Q lap even. Even at that point, it was like, well, okay, I got one good lap in. And I figured I would burn my tires off as I kind of was all week. But tonight it clicked.
Of course, a little bit of a different look to Sonoma from what we have seen in the past. And with cutting out the shortcut in the chute and going down through the carousel, this track gets a lot longer to over 2.5 miles in length. What was adapting that like? And, of course, in turn, made this race a little bit longer than what we've seen in the past as well.
Yeah, the pit strategy was going to be interesting with a 50 lapper. I didn't think I could split it in half, but once the car felt good, I went for it. And I like the layout. I've always liked this layout probably more than the other. But this is kind of a love-hate track. It's like if you're overdriving, then it can really hurt you. So it's important to stay patient. But yeah, I dig the layout, and I found something there in the carousel that I think really helped me out.
Of course, second win for you this season. That's just more bonus points. That's going to help you out when we get to the round of 16 with 7 races left to go in the regular season. Is that going to encourage you to maybe take more risks to fight for those bonus points, knowing that your spot in the fight for the championship is locked up? Or are you just going to kind of continue as business as usual because that 7 car is pretty consistently fast week in and week out?
Yeah, I don't want to change too much, particularly in the 1.5 mile tracks, because you never know what can happen there, and there's a lot of draft that, manipulates the race. So I'm just going to try to keep my nose clean, but, at the end of the day, we got to run with Andrew, and we got to try to beat. There's a few guys in here that are super quick, so I don't think I'm as quick as they are, so I'm just going to try to be smart.
Got a week off, but then we come back, and it'll be a tricky track in the tricky triangle as we head out to Pocono Raceway. What's going to be the outlook for round 14?
Yeah, another track that I really like. I feel like in the past, at least, it's been a driver's track, and I've always had some decent success there. So yeah, I'm looking forward to next week.
Looking forward to catching you that timeout, Kyle. Congratulations on the race win here tonight. Congratulations.
Appreciate it. Thanks everybody out there for being clean and having a great race, and thank you guys for broadcasting.
The race winner of tonight's Boosted Club 50, a race win number 2 for 2020 for the 7 of Kyle Trudell. We'll continue things down pit road, and I'll toss it over to you, Lorenzo, with Michael Laraya, who comes home P2 this evening.
Yes, I got Michael Araya over here, P2 into this race. So, Michael, well done in getting P2. A race that is normally quite different, I would say, from having the ovals. You come into a road and a different road layout that we are normally used seeing. It's a longer track, but you managed to get it done at the end of the day. So how's it feel to get that P2, a hard earned felt P2 in the first place?
It feels great. I ended up putting in a lot of practice this week just to prepare for this race, and it definitely paid off. I felt like my long run speed was definitely one of the best out there, and I really think that made a difference with being able to get a podium finish.
Right, and also one thing that I want to bring, I wanted to talk about, which kind of not bugged me, but I wanted to bring it up with you, is that at one point when you were battling with Farinas and Trudell, you guys were so close to one together, and then Trudell managed to open up that gap, and you cleared them. I think Farinas after a few laps, I think 2 to 3 laps later. Did you ever think you had the burn, the fuel, and the tires to make up that ground because it was quite a lengthy ground? It was about 2 seconds. But or you just prefer to hang back, I'm going to get position over here, getting another top finish, top 5 finish, top 3, even so. That would be your 6th top 5 into the season, another good result. But did you ever thought about closing the gap, or you just took a little bit on the back foot?
Well, I got to give Kyle Trudell a lot of credit because he had the freshest tires there at the end, and he was all over Andrew for a really long time. And um, Kyle, he got away from me there after those pit stops, and then he closed right on Andrew. And I mean, they had quite a big gap on me for a bit there. And Andrew, he wasn't making any mistakes. He wasn't, opening the door for Kyle there. So they were racing. That enabled me to close right up to them there. And Andrew was kind of just holding on. He had the oldest tires there, and once Kyle got around Andrew, I think Andrew figured, there's maybe not much I can do at this point. I just got to save my stuff, or maybe I just caught a lucky break and I just timed the pass right. But once I got around Andrew, I knew I had my work cut out trying to get Kyle there. He had the freshest tires, and he was always already fast to begin with. So um, I was just trying to get in that mindset, don't overdrive the car to try to catch him, because man, once you start doing that, you just make mistakes, and then you're gonna pay the price in lap times there. And I was just trying to be smooth and run consistent laps and hope that he made a mistake, but he didn't.
Right, and to finalize, you're going to have a break week. You guys are going to come back in basically 2 weeks when you guys drive into Pocono. It's the tricky triangle, just like Evan said. And what do you feel about Pocono? Is it a track that favors you as a driver? You like to drive it, or are you going to have a little bit of a problem with it?
In recent years, with the repave that was brought to iRacing, it's definitely helped me at that place. I felt like I wasn't quite as good on the older surface, and I've run races there in other leagues, and in previous years, I've really started to figure something out, and I feel like my chances are pretty good at that place. So I'm hoping to get at least another top 5, if not a win.
Let's see you in about a few weeks. And Michael, once again, congratulations on P2. That was a hard fought earned P2. And I can't wait to see what you're going to do in Pocono in a few weeks. Well done.
All right, thank you guys.
All right. That was Michael Araya, Evan. And I think we have one more guy to interview.
Yeah, we're going to roll on down the pit lane and chat with the driver of the number 8 machine, Kyle Kamer, who comes home a third tonight from Sonoma. Kyle, congratulations. A good result. You started up front by capturing pole position. You get a good result in this race. Just kind of tell us how the strategy worked through, because you were one of the drivers that went longer on that first run, where some other drivers opted to pit first, and that did give you the speed advantage late to come home third. You figure that's about where you deserve to finish tonight?
Well, I don't know. I mean, probably fourth. Drew tried that real short pitting strategy, and if he would have done something more like me, he probably would have been out in front of me. But yeah, we needed a good finish tonight for points and trying to position ourselves to get into the playoffs.
You gain 5 spots total. You go from the outside looking into the inside as this rockets you all the way up to 13th in the championship. Still a long way to go. Nothing set in stone. Your advantage over the cut line is only 5 points between you and 16th and 10 points between you and the first driver on the outside looking in 17th. But how critical was it to get these big points tonight? And now maybe having found the success here, do you look towards Watkins Glen as another opportunity to get a lot of points and maybe even go for the race win?
Yeah, I mean, I look forward to all the road courses we do there in the Roval and, in the Xfinity Series, Mid-Ohio. That was so much fun. So I look forward to all that. I'm just trying to take it week to week. And, my biggest issue this year has been finishing races. So that's kind of all I was trying to do tonight was, not wreck it.
And you made it the distance. I think that was critical because a lot of drivers struggled to get all the way. Do you change how you drive now? I mean, do you go on the defensive at all as we look forward to Pocono in 2 weeks' time now that you're in? Or are you going to continue to push the envelope to try to get that points gap a little bit more comfortable?
Yeah, I think I've got to keep going after points. Like top 12 finishes every week is, what I'm shooting for. I think if I can do that, that'll be enough points to get me in, assuming, 4 more people don't win their first race.
And that is all going to come down. Of course, there's some exciting races at the end of this. Now with 7 races still to go in the regular season. I mentioned Watkins Glen. And of course, the Super Speedway in Daytona mixed in, going to make it real interesting, Kyle. But for a P3 finish here from to Sonoma, and I think a critical bunch of points as you secure your first top 5 and a 4th top 10 of the season. Wanted to thank you for chatting with us. Congratulate you on the finish, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks for always putting on a great show. Appreciate it.
There he is, your 3rd place finisher, and a good opportunity first time of this season to be able to chat with the driver of the number 8 machine. That is Kyle Kamer. And I mentioned the points, Lorenzo, because we do have those updated points. The big winner is Kyle Kamer, who goes up 5 spots. He rockets to 13th in the championship. A big loser in this race is Eric Stanford, who finished in 30th. He falls from inside a playoff spot down 5 to 17th. So that really hurts him. Always, when there's a big winner, there's got to be a big loser, and Eric Stanford's going to have some work to do because he finds himself outside of the top 16 playoff bubble for the first time in a long while. I think as well, when we look at, even lower down, somebody like a Mosier, a Valderrama, we talked about them a little bit tonight. They're 29th position. I don't really think they're going to points their way in. Is it good for them to get some points out of this? Absolutely. They do gain. But I think when you're in that range, you're going to be looking towards a Daytona. I don't really think that win is going to come out of nowhere from the Pocono Raceway. But that's another tricky track. I mean, we talk about the fact that it's interesting and fun to get these NASCAR Cup cars out on Sonoma to mix things up. I mean, Pocono is mixing things up as well. That's a very unique track. I would not be shocked if that's a track where, one of those guys towards a bubble spot just really likes how that track races. And that could be a big opportunity. I'm a big fan of this schedule, though, going forward. We talked about the week off that's due up, but I mean, coming up after that, I mentioned Pocono. We're going to go to Indianapolis right after that, a super fun track. Yeah, there's intermediates in there. Kentucky, Chicago still to come, but I mean, Michigan, Watkins Glen, Daytona. Out of the 7 races left, only 2 of them in the regular season, I should say, are on intermediates. So there are going to be plenty of opportunities, I think, for some drivers to make some noise. We talked with Kyle Kamer there. He was talking about wins. Again, wins lock you in. Looking at the points right now, we have 7 different drivers with wins, but only 6 of those are eligible. You have to race at half of the regular season races in this Full Throttle Cup Series to lock in. Malik Ray has some race wins, but he hasn't raced in 10 races yet. That could drop him out. That opens up an additional spot on points that right now is not available. All these are storylines that we're going to be following for the rest of the season here on RaceSpot.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting in about a few weeks. See how these drivers will fare in terms of going to what I like to say super speedways of sorts. You know, anything that is above or equals to 2 miles is for me is the super speedway. The only one is we probably going to be in intermediates. I think it's Chicagoland. And just taking a quick look over here, but I'm be doing that right now. I think it's one more track. I think maybe Watkins Glen doesn't fall into that 2 mile category. I think it's 1.8. But it's going to be really interesting how these drivers will try to keep the consistency alive when they come to the playoffs, especially I think the final 5 rounds are going to be the more hectic rounds because they want to try to move up and down the slots. But as you said, a lot of stories to be still broken down in the next few weeks.
And your race winner, Kyle Trudell, is going to have an extra week to celebrate because these drivers with a non-points, no TV, just a fun event as they're going to blow off some steam and the old school cup cars in North Wilkesboro next week. And we will be back in 2 weeks' time. That's it for us, though, here tonight for the virtual Sonoma Raceway. As you take a look at the look ahead, 13 races down, 7 regular season races left to go. So we'll say a good night on behalf of our entire team here at RacespotTV, the folks behind the scenes, for our producer Hugo Luis, for myself, Evan Pasoko, for Lorenzo Bonder. I want to thank you all at home for tuning in and joining us. And one more big congratulations to now a 2-time race winner this season in that number 7 car of Kyle Trudell. We'll be back, though, in 2 weeks' time as we go racing from the Tricky Triangle at Pocono Raceway. That one on Monday, June the 29th. That race and every race at the 2020 Real Sim Racing Full Throttle Cup Series, powered by Boosted, going to be found exclusively right here on RacespotTV. Until next time, good night from Sonoma, where Kyle Trudell's a winner on the road course.